Chapter 30. Men, bring third young master, Shanhai, and Meng Long to White Tiger Hall and punish them according to the clan rules. After saying those words, Madame Wang stood up abruptly. Wang Chang's expression turned cold. Shanhai and Meng Long's faces immediately darkened as well. The Wang clan was a family of generals, and the clan rules weren't limited to kneeling on a washboard. Even a tough man would lose a layer of skin after coming out of the torture inside. It was rare for the Wang clan to resort to the clan rules, but judging from Madame's expression, she was probably serious this time. The two of them weren't afraid of the clan rules. They reaped what they sowed, but young Master Chong might not be able to tolerate it. "Madam, there's no need to say anything." Just as the two of them were about to plead for Wang Chong, Madame Wang interrupted them. She hardened her heart and made up her mind. This time, she could not be soft-hearted and had to teach Wang Chong a lesson. Only in this way would he remember it deeply, and in the future he would know to think more before doing things, and not worry too much. For this goal, she even dragged Shanhai and Meng Long into the matter. "I've already decided on this matter, why aren't you all making a move?" Madame Wang hardened her heart and glared at the guards around her. The guards swiftly stepped forward to restrain Wang Chong, Shanhai, and Meng Long. Just as the clan rules were about to be meted out, at this moment, "Madame Wang, the King of Song has ordered me to deliver the reward." Suddenly, a voice sounded. Not too far away, a luxurious carriage drove over. From the carriage, a middle-aged guard dressed in embroidered robes came down with a red sandalwood box in his hands. In an instant, the entrance fell silent. Everyone, including Wang Chong, turned to look at the guard. "Reward?" Madame Wang's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. She turned around and astonishment appeared on her elegant face. "My husband has already left the capital and he didn't mention anything about a reward to me before he left. May I know why Lord the King of Song would bestow a reward upon him?" "He, madam, you are mistaken. This reward isn't for Lord Wang. Instead, His Excellency the King of Song specially rewarded his son, Wang Chong." The middle-aged guard said with a smile. Buzz. In an instant, countless gazes fell on Wang Chong, and they were filled with surprise. Even Madame Wang was dazed for a moment when she heard the answer. "Milord, is there a mistake? The King of Song has only seen my son a few times. Why would he suddenly reward him?" Madame Wang said anxiously. She was puzzled. The Song clan and the Wang clan had been friends for several generations, and their relationship was indeed very close. However, the Wang clan had many descendants, so it was impossible for the King of Song to pay attention to every single one of them. Moreover, the King of Song was very busy every day. Every year, he would only go to the old master's birthday to take a look. He would stay for a while and then leave quickly. In the Wang clan, only Wang Chong's father, eldest uncle, and youngest uncle had seen the King of Song a lot. At the very least, the other children rarely saw each other. The last time Wang Chong met the King of Song was 7 to 8 years ago. It was impossible for him to remember such a long time ago. Even if Wang Chong were to stand before the King of Song right now, he wouldn't be able to recognize him. Why would he suddenly reward him? I'm not too sure about that. However, the King of Song did say that this item is for your son, Wang Chong. The King of Song said that he thinks highly of your son. He also said that your son is talented and has great foresight. He will definitely have a bright future." The middle-aged guard turned to look at Wang Chong with admiration. "Hua!" As soon as he said that, the crowd was in an uproar. All the guards, nannies, servants, and maids looked at Wang Chong in surprise. Even Madame Wang turned her head and looked at Wang Chong in disbelief. She couldn't believe that this was what the King of Song said about her unfilial son, who was ignorant and incompetent. Madame Wang rarely interfered with the affairs of the court, but she knew that the King of Song didn't praise people easily. His evaluation of Wang Chong was extraordinary. Strange? Why would the King of Song remember me? Wang Chong was more curious than anyone else. He didn't remember doing anything worthy of the King of Song's praise. In fact, he hadn't even met the King of Song face to face. However, Wang Chong soon thought of something. "Heavens! I'm afraid this matter has something to do with Lord Lu." Wang Chong smiled and immediately understood. His father had already left the capital. In the entire capital, the only person who could put in a good word for him beside the King of Song was probably Lord Lu. His performance in front of him was not in vain. "Mother, I didn't go out this morning to fool around. As you saw, even the King of Song rewarded me." Wang Chong quickly stood up and said with a smile. This was a good opportunity. If he didn't know how to make use of it, he would have wasted the King of Song's painstaking effort. Madame Wang glared at Wang Chong. Although she didn't know what was going on, she couldn't punish Wang Chong in front of the King of Song's messenger. "Hurry up and thank the King of Song," Madame Wang said coldly. "Thank you, messenger." Wang Chong quickly stepped forward and bowed. "I'll have to trouble you to thank the King of Song on my behalf." Hee, young Master Chong is too polite. To the left and right, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Originally, everyone thought that the third young master wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. They didn't expect him to be saved by the King of Song. Wang Chong didn't fall into a daze. Making use of this rare opportunity, he quickly found an excuse, took the box, and escaped. After returning to his room and closing the door, Wang Chong poured himself a cup of tea and drank it slowly. He exhaled deeply and his heart gradually calmed down. The envoy of the King of Song had already left. His mother had also returned home with her maids, servants, and nannies to rest. The entire Wang family residence had calmed down, and Wang Chong had the time to think about his future. His father's matter had been resolved, the funds for the Hyderabad ores project had been secured, and his childhood friend, Wei Hao, was helping out with the craftsmen. The purification and forging of the Wuxia steel weapons wasn't something that could be accomplished in a short period of time. Thus, he didn't have much to do for the time being. "Now, it's time for me to raise my strength," Wang Chong quietly said to himself as he took a sip of tea. In his last life, Wang Chong had deeply experienced that earth-shattering calamity, and he was keenly aware that this calamity was not something that could be resolved by a single person's martial prowess. An infuriated man can only take 10 steps, but the wrath of an emperor can flow blood for 1,000 li. Only by changing the entire Central Plains from top to bottom would he be able to deal with the calamity in the future. Thus, in this life, Wang Chong decided to walk the path of the upper echelons of the Central Plains. Only by changing his clan, as well as the fate of the entire empire, would he be able to fulfill his mission. Comparatively speaking, personal strength wasn't as important. However, this wasn't to say that personal strength wasn't important. In the future, if he wanted to squeeze into the upper echelons of the Central Plains and gain the authority to change the entire empire, he would have to possess extraordinary strength. In the Central Plains, in the Tang dynasty, strength was everything. Furthermore, when he met Wei Hao today, Wei Hao was able to push him back with just a light push. This was a reminder to Wang Chong. Just like what Wei Hao said, perhaps it was time for him to put in some effort. To forge iron, one had to be strong. If he wasn't strong enough, everything would be for naught in the future. For the next few days, there's no need for me to head out. I'll just stay at home and cultivate, Wang Chong thought. The room was silent. After resting for a moment, Wang Chong turned his attention to the brocade box that the King of Song had sent over to him. "I wonder what the King of Song has sent over to me?" Wang Chong touched the brocade box in his embrace and a hint of curiosity suddenly arose in his heart. The King of Song was a descendant of the Emperor of Heaven, a prince of the royal family. Such a person was particular about rewards and punishments, and he wouldn't reward others easily. However, if he did, he would reward others generously. This time, the gift that the King of Song had sent over to him probably wouldn't be light. Even though the Song and Wang clan had a 3-generation relationship, that was a matter between adults. It had nothing to do with children like them. This was the first time Wang Chong had received a gift from the King of Song. I should hurry up and open it to take a look. At this point, Wang Chong couldn't hold back his curiosity any longer. Placing the box on the table, Wang Chong locked the lock on the box, and, gotcha, it opened. How fragrant! As soon as the brocade box was opened, Wang Chong smelled a thick and refreshing medicinal fragrance. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. It's an elixir. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, and he was immediately overjoyed. From the thick medicinal fragrance, Wang Chong could also smell a thick smell of sulfur and lead dust. These two were the ingredients for refining elixirs. Without a doubt, the King of Song had given him an extremely precious elixir. Wang Chong opened the brocade box. Indeed, on the smooth golden silk at the bottom of the box, there was a round and heavy elixir that emitted a metallic luster. On the surface of this thumb-sized elixir, Wang Chong saw many fine and exquisite green talisman patterns. They were layered and gave off an extremely mysterious feeling. Body tempering elixir. Wang Chong was overjoyed. The elixir that the King of Song had given him was a body-tempering pill that was hard to come by. This was an elixir used by beginner fighters to strengthen one's cultivation and raise one's cultivation. Wang Chong had long wanted to buy a body-tempering pill for himself, but it was a pity that the Wang clan was unable to afford it. Furthermore, pill alchemists were extremely rare, and they only served the royal family and royalty of the empire. Others, including the nobles, couldn't afford it. In fact, even these alchemists were rarely seen. They were elusive and secretive, and even nobles like the Wang clan would find it difficult to meet them. Wang Chong didn't expect that the King of Song would give him such a precious body-tempering pill. Great! With this elixir, I will be able to cultivate the dragon bone art. Looking at the elixir, a thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he recalled a secret art. That secret art was extremely difficult to cultivate, and its effects were slow. Thus, Wang Chong didn't even think about it from the start. However, with this body-tempering pill, everything was different. In the hands of others, this body-tempering pill would at most raise the quality of their body, making it stronger. However, Wang Chong was able to bring out its full potential. Furthermore, this would be helpful for him when he joins the Kunwa training camp in the future. Looks like I'll have to get the gatekeeper to prepare some medicinal herbs tomorrow, Wang Chong thought. The pill Dao of this space-time was extremely unique. It contained a large amount of lead, mercury, sulfur, and metals. Elixirs made from these ingredients were lethal poison to ordinary people. Not only would consuming it not increase one's cultivation, it would even result in death. However, it was different for fighters. An appropriate amount of lead, mercury, and sulfur could greatly strengthen a fighter's bones and tendons. This was also the uniqueness of the pill Dao. Wang Chong's cultivation was still insufficient. He had to use some medicinal herbs to neutralize the toxicity of the body-tempering pill before he could consume it. Pada. Chapter 31. After dinner, Wang Chong visited his imprisoned little sister and rested in his room for a while. Suddenly, the door opened and Xianxia and Meng Long barged in like a gust of wind. What's the matter? Wang Chong frowned and lifted his head. Gongzi, someone wishes to meet you. Two uninvited guests had arrived at the Wang family residence, and they requested to meet Wang Chong. Xianxia and Meng Long had been punished by Madame Wang to stand guard at the entrance due to the incident in the day. As such, other than the two of them, no one else knew of this matter. Initially, Xianxia and Meng Long wanted to inform the madam about this matter. However, the madam already had too many things to worry about during this period of time. If she were to find out that the young master was stirring up trouble outside, she would surely fly into a rage. Thus, the two of them decided to keep this matter a secret. Third young master, I think it's best that you meet them outside. Otherwise, if madam were to find out about it, you will surely be punished. The two of them bowed and said. Wang Chong smiled. Xianxia and Meng Long might not have realized it, but unknowingly, their mentality had changed. If it was in the past, they would never have said such words. It seemed like his earnest words and the high praise from the King of Song had worked. At the very least, the two of them no longer viewed him as a profligate scion. Walking out of his room, Wang Chong saw the two uninvited guests outside the Wang family residence. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong was also curious about the background of the two and why they would look for him. You are Wang Chong? Before Wang Chong could even speak, the two of them had already begun to question him. In truth, the moment Wang Chong appeared in the distance, before he even walked over, The two of them had already been carefully observing him. The two of them were extremely curious as to who it was that dared to steal their loot. There weren't many people who knew about the Hyderabad ores, and the other party was able to purchase the ores at an exorbitant price before them. It wasn't something an ordinary person could do. The two of them really wanted to know who their opponent was. However, neither of them expected Wang Chong to be so young. The two Buddhist monks did not lie. It was indeed a child. The Grand Zhang clan was something that even the head of the Zhang clan held in high regard for. Yet it was actually foiled by a child. This was something that the two of them found hard to believe. "Who are you?" Wang Chong stared at the two of them, also observing them. Wang Chong did not remember seeing them, but from afar, Wang Chong could smell the strong smell of rust, sulfur, and furnace fire. People with this kind of smell must have been working in special places for a long time. Wang Chong had already vaguely guessed their origins, but he still needed them to personally confirm it. "I am Zhang Jian." "I am Zhang Tsong. Young Master Wang might not recognize us, but we are all from the Zhang clan in the capital." The two of them said. The Zhang clan specialized in blacksmithing, iron ores, weapons, and armor. Even though they were famous in the iron industry, the two of them didn't think that a 15-year-old child would know about them. "It's them." Wang Chong appeared calm on the surface, but his heart skipped a beat. He didn't expect the Zhang clan to arrive so quickly. In his previous life, Sinda left behind a handful of Wuxia steel weapons in the Central Plains, and those weapons were forged by the Zhang clan. If he hadn't appeared, the Zhang clan would have been the one to take over his baton and deal with the two Buddhist monks from Sindhu. In the iron smelting and iron ore industry, the capital's Zhang family had a resounding reputation, and they held an important position. If not for them, Wuxia steel wouldn't have been left behind in the Tang dynasty. It was a pity that even though the Zhang clan had sensed the uniqueness of the Hyderabad ores, they still didn't understand the true value of the Hyderabad ores. The Hyderabad ores they bought from Sindhu could only be considered as a small sample. On top of that, they didn't know the correct forging method of Wuxia steel, so they weren't able to bring out the true value of the steel. This was truly a pity. "May I know the reason why you two are looking for me?" Wang Chong smiled. "It's like this. I heard that Gongzi found two Sindhi monks and bought some ores." The two of them tried their best to be tactful with their words. The clan head had instructed them time and time again not to reveal the matter of the Hyderabad ores. The two of them didn't know how much Wang Chong knew about the ore. Was he just buying it on a whim, or did he view it as some kind of rare ore? In any case, before getting a clear understanding of Wang Chong's background, the two of them didn't wish to speak too much. "Hee, as I expected." Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled on the inside. As expected, the two of them were indeed here for the Hyderabad ores. Furthermore, it was very likely that they had asked for the address of the two Sindhi monks after failing to find anything. "They did buy some of that or—" "Why, are you two interested in this or as well?" Wang Chong flung his sleeves and placed his hands behind his back. He didn't just buy some of it, he bought all of it. Not only did he buy all of it, he even monopolized the sales of the Hyderabad ores in the Central Plains. If the two of them hadn't met with the two Buddhist monks and were unable to buy the Hyderabad ores, why would they come here? "Our Zhang clan is indeed interested in this ore. However, I heard that Gongzi has already bought all of it. Your father is an influential official of Great Tang, and we have always respected Duke Jiao. However, I have never heard that your clan has dabbled in the iron industry as well. May I ask if Gongzi is willing to part with the iron ores and give them to our Zhang clan? Of course, we won't let Gongzi suffer a loss. We will send an appropriate amount of gold as compensation to show our sincerity." The two of them bowed and said. The two of them felt that what they said was reasonable and very sincere. Duke Jiao's lineage wasn't a blacksmith, and Wang Yan's family had nothing to do with blacksmiths. The Hyderabad ores falling into the hands of the Wang clan would be a waste of a heavenly treasure. Only in the hands of the Zhang clan would they be able to display their true value. Of course, the Zhang clan wouldn't take it for free. They would also compensate them appropriately. This would be beneficial to both the Zhang clan and the Wang clan. In the eyes of the two, even though Wang Chong had stolen the Hyderabad ores, he was still a child. Furthermore, given the Wang clan's reputation, they probably wouldn't be able to afford the money needed to buy the ores. The words of the Wang clan's Gongzi were probably just the willfulness of a child. Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled. He knew that the two of them thought that he was a child, thinking that he didn't know the value of the ores. How much silver are the two of you going to give me as compensation? 1,000 gold taels. The two of them replied sincerely, emphasizing the word gold. As long as Gongzi sells the contract between you and the two Buddhist monks to us, we can immediately send 1,000 gold taels to your residence. 1,000 gold taels. This was a figure that the two of them came up with after discussing it with the clan head. In the eyes of the two of them, Wang Chong had made a huge profit by selling a contract for an ores that he didn't even have in his possession. They had investigated the matter carefully, and the annual income of a general like the Wang clan wouldn't exceed 1,000 gold taels. The reason why they gave such a huge figure was in consideration of the reputation of Duke Jiao, and it could be considered as a form of respect. If it's this amount, the two of you should return. I won't sell the contract for the Hyderabad ores. It won't be too late for the two of you to look for me after you have thought things through. Wang Chong scoffed and waved his hands. He was prepared to earn a fortune from the Hyderabad ores, perhaps even a few 100,000 gold taels. 1,000 gold taels wasn't even a fraction of what he wanted. Most probably, he could earn more than that by selling a Wuxi steel weapon. The two of them probably really treated him as a child who had never seen the world. 1,000 gold taels? There was no way he would agree to it. The two of them widened their eyes in astonishment. They thought that this was a fair price. Based on their understanding, the Wang clan was an incorruptible family. For a Gongzi like Wang Chong, it would be a miracle if he could earn 10 silver taels a month. To be able to earn 1,000 gold taels without doing anything, only a fool wouldn't do such a thing. Pardon my words, Gongzi, but 1,000 gold taels isn't a small sum. If Gongzi wants more, I'm afraid that it will be difficult for us to agree to it. The faces of the two of them darkened and turned awful. 1,000 gold taels was the highest they could offer after consulting the clan head. They didn't expect that Wang Chong would ask for less. This was something that they didn't expect, and it was impossible for them to agree to it. The capital's Zhang clan was famous in the Tang dynasty, but they weren't at the level where they could throw a few thousand gold taels away casually. Furthermore, if we aren't wrong, you haven't even gotten the contract for the Hyderabad ores, right? If you aren't able to sell it for 90,000 gold taels in a month, not only will you not be able to get the Hyderabad ores, you will also have to pay a huge sum of money. Are we right? The two of them said bluntly. 90,000 gold taels. This was an impossible mission. Even for a clan like the capital's Zhang clan, this was an extremely taxing task. Needless to say, a small yamen, like the Wang clan, which relied on their salary to survive. The two of them didn't believe that Wang Chong would be able to complete this mission. This was also the reason why they came to negotiate with Wang Chong. In their plan, even if they were to obtain the contract from Wang Chong, they would have to renegotiate with the two Sindhi Buddhist monks to either reduce the price or extend the time limit. In any case, gathering 90,000 gold taels in a month was an unbearable burden for any clan that had a huge budget. The two of you. I can tell that the two of you want this or very much. However, I would like to ask, if I were to give this contract to your Zhang clan, given the capital's Zhang clan strength, how much profit can a June of this or generate? Standing on the stairs, Wang Chong's robe fluttered in the wind as he looked at the two of them confidently. The two of them were clearly taken aback. They didn't expect Wang Chong to ask such a question. With the reputation of our capital's Zhang clan, any weapon, even if it's just a sickle as long as it has our name on it, can be sold for several times the original price. As long as this Hyderabad ore is refined by our Zhang clan into a weapon, a June can generate a profit of at least 300 gold taels. Chapter 32. What the two of them wanted to say was 600 gold taels. The Zhang clan had already done some research on this matter, and they knew that the Hyderabad ore was a top-notch ore. It didn't require too much tempering to be used for forging. Given the Zhang clan's forging method and the Zhang clan's emblem, it would definitely fetch a high price. Most metal swords and sabers were worth around a dozen silver taels or even several dozen silver taels. On the other hand, the sabers and swords forged by famous clans could fetch around a dozen gold taels or even several dozen gold taels. This was a price that many wealthy merchants couldn't afford. However, the capital's Zhang clan was different. Using the Hyderabad ore to forge swords and sabers, they were confident that they could fetch a high price of 600 to 700 gold taels or even 1,000 gold taels. As the saying went, a sword could be sold for a sky-high price of 1,000 taels of gold. Only the Zhang family in the capital had the qualifications and the ability to do so. This was also the source of the duo's confidence. From this transaction, the Zhang clan should be able to earn a profit of 30,000 to 50,000 gold taels. More importantly, if they were able to forge a large batch of such top-notch weapons, they would be able to raise the standing of the Zhang clan in the entire Tang dynasty. This was also the reason why they, as elders of the Zhang clan, were willing to work so hard to complete this transaction personally. Then do you know how much they are selling the Hyderabad ore for? Wang Chong chuckled. The words of the two of them weren't truthful at all. Just as the two of them were about to speak, their mouths opened, and they froze. They only heard that the Hyderabad ore had been bought by Wang Chong, but they didn't ask about anything else. Since the other party didn't have anything to sell, why would they bother asking about the price? Wang Chong's words had truly stumped them. The quality of this ore is excellent, and it doesn't require too much tempering. Thus, the price should be much higher. On top of that, they had to transport it over from Sindhu, making it even more expensive. However, no matter how expensive it is, it shouldn't exceed 100 gold taels, right? The two of them replied calmly. A high-quality saber and sword forged by a famous clan was worth around 100 gold taels. In the Central Plains, a family of 6 wouldn't even be able to spend that much gold in an entire year. The quality of the Hyderabad iron ores was extraordinary, and the evaluation given by the two was already quite high. In Zhang Jian and Zhang Tsong's view, no matter how high the price of the Hyderabad ores was, it was impossible for it to exceed this price. When Wang Chong heard this, he laughed. Obviously, although the Zhang family had already sensed the difference of the Hyderabad ores, they had not correctly recognized the true value of this ore. From this point of view, Wang Chong understood why in his previous life, the Zhang clan had clearly come into contact with the two Buddhist monks, but in the end, they only left a little bit of iron ore for the Central Plains. After all, when the Hyderabad ores first appeared, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Obviously, the Zhang family had missed this opportunity. You too, I won't hide it from you. Wang Chong raised up 3 fingers. The price that the two Buddhist monks from Sindhu offered is 3 times higher than yours. A june of ore is 300 gold taels. The duo widened their eyes in shock. Neither of them could have imagined that the price of the Hyderabad ores would be so high. This had far surpassed the value of all ores in the Central Plains. I'm not afraid to tell you that I will never sell the contract for the Hyderabad ores. The 1,000 gold taels that you offered is nothing in my eyes. As long as I sell a weapon forged from the Hyderabad ores, I can easily earn more than 10,000 gold taels. As long as I sell a few weapons, I can easily raise the price of 90,000 gold taels. With his hands behind his back, Wang Chong looked down from the staircase and said arrogantly, "This is impossible." The two of them exclaimed in shock. "Wang Gongzi, are you joking? 300 gold taels for a june, there isn't such a price in the entire Central Plains. It is impossible for anyone to buy it at such a price. If this is the price, we have to reconsider. Also, earning more than 10,000 gold taels for a single weapon? Wang Gongzi, we respect your esteemed ancestor. Perhaps you think that it is interesting and fun, but we don't think so. There isn't anyone in the Central Plains who can sell it at such a high price. This joke isn't funny at all." The two of them had a stern expression. They came here with sincerity to negotiate with Wang Chong. However, Wang Chong's attitude made them feel as though he was mocking them disrespectfully. "I'm not joking," Wang Chong said calmly. He finally understood why the Zhang clan didn't grasp this opportunity. Even without him, the Zhang clan wouldn't have grasped this opportunity. If he wanted to change the fate between the Tang dynasty and Wuxia steel, only he could do it. It seems like you haven't done your homework. The price of the Hyderabad ores is 300 gold taels for a June. There isn't any room for negotiation. I don't know if you can accept it, but for me, it's completely acceptable. Also, if you are worried that I won't be able to gather 90,000 gold taels, you don't have to worry at all. It won't be long before I gather all the funds. If you wish to negotiate with me, you better think it through before looking for me. Wang Chong said calmly. This wasn't arrogance, but confidence in his own abilities. The Zhang clan didn't know that with the coming of war, the prices of the weapons market would change. The Tang dynasty had been peaceful for too long, and it had been too long since they lost a war. The long period of peace and the massive army made the attitude of the Central Plains towards the smithing industry completely different from the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindh. In the Central Plains, as long as the weapons were of superior quality, it would be fine as long as they didn't affect the war. Even the Zhang clan, a smithing clan, didn't have the spirit of striving for perfection in their smithing industry. The treasured swords and sabers they forged were usually of a decent quality. Thus, the prices of weapons in the Central Plains weren't very high. On the other hand, the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindh and the distant lands, due to their small population and frequent wars, placed great importance on the smithing of weapons. The time required to forge a good weapon in the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindh was much longer than in the Central Plains, and the amount of time and effort required was much higher as well. As a result, the weapons of the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindh were even more expensive than in the Central Plains. Even the price of iron ore was much higher than in the Central Plains. Honestly speaking, the smithing skills of the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindh weren't much better than those of the Central Plains. But through this spirit of striving for perfection, the smithing skills of the Abbasid Caliphate had already surpassed those of the Central Plains. Currently, the difference in smithing skills between the two sides wasn't too great, but as time passed, this difference would only grow larger and larger. If the Tang dynasty wanted to catch up, they would have to wait until they suffered a series of defeats in the future before they would truly place importance on the smithing industry. At that time, those truly top-notch weapons that had been forged with a large amount of time, effort would be able to display astonishing value. And the weapon market of the Central Plains would undergo an astonishing change as well. The capital's Zhang clan would never know that all of this had happened in just a few years. But now, Wang Chong had already interfered. No matter how one looked at it, the transaction of the Hyderabad ores was extremely worth it. Wang Gongzi, since you aren't willing to sell it, then forget it. We'll look for you in a month's time. Of course, it would be more suitable for you to look for those two Sindhi monks. Clearly, they didn't heed Wang Chong's words at all. No matter how they listened to Wang Chong's words, they felt that it was just an excuse. As elders of the Zhang clan, they felt that they had already treated Wang Chong with utmost courtesy. Wang Chong's fooling had clearly left the duo dissatisfied. Wang Gongzi, farewell. Chapter 33. The body tempering pill could greatly increase one's strength, but the main purpose of Wang Chong was to cultivate the dragon bone art. There were 3 kinds of bone refining techniques in the world, and they were dragon bone, tiger bone, and panther bone. Other than these 3, the rest were all unorthodox. Of the 3, the panther bone was the most common, as well as the easiest to find. The tiger bone art was much more difficult to cultivate, and only nobles possessed it. Furthermore, it was a secret of the various clans and clans. As for the dragon bone art, it was even rarer. Even the clans of nobles could only dream of it. That was because the dragon bone art was only passed down within the royal family, and it was strictly forbidden for outsiders to learn it. It was said that the dragon bone art was a bone refining technique created by the ancient Yu the Great for his descendants. After the fall of the Xia dynasty, it was passed down to the Zhou dynasty, and the Zhou dynasty passed it down to the Han dynasty, all the way until the Tang dynasty. There were many people who had never even heard of this secret art in their entire lives. Wang Chong had only managed to obtain this precious dragon bone art by chance. Even though it was only the most basic of bone refining techniques, and it wasn't some world-shaking secret art, it could still be said to be the foundation of one's martial arts. In his previous life, he had been idling around, and he had wasted 4 years of his life, missing the optimal age for bone refining. As such, no matter how hard he worked and how much help he received from the top-notch seniors of the Central Plains, he was still limited by his own limitations. After reaching Saint Martial Realm, he was unable to advance any further. To Wang Chong, this was a deep regret. His defeat in his previous life wasn't unrelated to this. In this life, he could finally make up for this deep regret of his. With the dragon bone art, he would definitely be able to surpass the limits of his previous life and reach even greater heights. Boom. Wang Chong rested for a moment before punching out. Boom. As he punched out, a scorching stream of fire emitted from his mouth and shot towards the depths of Wang Chong's body. Taking steps, bending his body, supporting his palms, stretching his bones. Wang Chong was not practicing an ordinary fist technique. Instead, it was like a dragon stretching its body and walking on the ground. The purpose of dragon bone art was to imitate the movements of a dragon, spreading out all the blood and bones in one's body so as to guide the external origin energy in this manner, stimulating the acupoints in one's body and changing the bones of a fighter from ordinary bones to dragon bones. The root bone was the foundation of all martial arts. Whether a person's root bone was good or not, it directly determined his future. A person with a good bone structure would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. A person with a bad bone structure, even if he exhausted his entire life, would only be a mortal body, and his achievements would be limited. Thus, even though the dragon bone art wasn't some earth-shattering ultimate art, and it wasn't able to bring a martial artist overwhelming strength, Wang Chong still viewed it with great importance. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong's right fist opened up into a palm. Taking a step forward, as though a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, he punched out once more. An explosion sounded in the air and a surge of energy gushed out from the area in front of Wang Chong. This was known as the Dragon Breath Fist. The crux of practicing the Dragon Breath Fist was to comprehend the essence of the dragon's breath. At the same time, through the movement of this fist, one would be able to drive the 28 bones and 64 muscles in one's body, opening up a small pathway in one's body, allowing the medicinal essence of the pill to flow down, allowing it to strike the hidden acupoints in one's body 1,000 times easier than usual. The greatest problem with practicing this fist was that if one's movements weren't precise enough and one's comprehension of the essence wasn't thorough enough, not only would one be unable to open up a pathway for the medicinal essence of the pill through the imitation of the dragon, it would also damage the muscles and bones in one's body. It could be said that if one didn't practice this technique thoroughly, it was easy for one to get injured. However, Wang Chong was different. Even though he was only 15 and his cultivation was pitifully low, as the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains in his previous life, Wang Chong was still able to easily comprehend the essence of the dragon bone art. Furthermore, he wouldn't be able to avoid damaging his muscles and bones. How weird! In the midst of practicing, Wang Chong suddenly came to a halt. For some reason, when he was practicing the dragon bone art this time around, Wang Chong felt that his movements were exceptionally smooth. This wasn't just a matter of difficulty, but rather, it felt as though water had melted into one's body. Wang Chong was well aware of his own situation. In the past, he had been living a befuddled and unrestrained life. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been easy for him to cultivate for such a long period of time. However, Wang Chong didn't feel this way at all. Not only that, the melted into one's body didn't seem to be something that a fighter of his current realm should be capable of. This thought flashed across his mind. Shaking his head, Wang Chong tossed this thought out of his head. Dragon ascending the clouds. Without any time to think, Wang Chong turned around and took another step forward to continue his cultivation. This was called Dragon ascending the clouds. Even though his feet didn't leave the ground, Wang Chong's fist seemed to be extremely agile. His body, will, fist, and hands were all there. It was as though he was a dragon ascending the clouds. Dragon tail whip. Dragon claws. With a series of steps, Wang Chong moved like a swimming dragon. The dragon bone art, which was extremely difficult to cultivate and required precise control over one's muscles and bones, was executed by him. His movements were graceful and free. It didn't lack the might and agility of 1,000 caddies. On the ground, as Wang Chong moved around, he only left behind 7 footprints. If one were to take a closer look, one would realize that the distribution of these footprints was similar to the Big Dipper in the sky. This was called astral steps, a movement technique from the dragon bone art. Stepping on the astral steps, dragon roaming to and fro. This was the astral steps of the dragon bone art. In the quiet garden of the Wang family, Wang Chong was cultivating the dragon bone art by himself. The bone tempering art that Wang Chong was cultivating was different from others. When Wang Chong was cultivating, unlike others, he didn't swallow the entire body tempering pill. Instead, he held it in his mouth. This was a small technique used to cultivate the bone tempering art. Swallowing it would allow one to instantly release a large amount of energy, making it easier for one to cultivate. However, the effects of the pill would quickly dissipate, resulting in unnecessary wastage. However, it was different when it was held in the mouth. Even though the energy released was in the form of strands, the medicinal effects lasted longer, allowing one to bring out the full effects of the pill. Time passed slowly. Wang Chong had already passed down the order that no one was to disturb him today. Thus, he was more than happy to be alone in this quiet garden. The medicinal effects of the pill continued to spread, and Wang Chong could feel his body gradually heating up. At the same time, his strength was also growing steadily. Body tempering pill was able to increase a cultivator's strength. This was one of its uses. Regardless of whether I can successfully cultivate the dragon bone art or not, after consuming this body tempering pill, I should be able to reach origin energy tier 4 after cultivating for a period of time. While Wang Chong was practicing the astral steps, a thought flashed across his mind. Martial arts could be divided into 9 tiers, from origin energy tier 1 to tier 9. Wang Chong was only at origin energy tier 3, and he wasn't even a match for the origin energy tier 4 Wei Hao, needless to say, the origin energy tier 9 Yao Feng. With such a cultivation realm, it would be difficult for him to enter the Kunwu training camp. The 3 great training camps were still in the planning stages, and many people thought that the 3 great training camps were meant for the descendants of nobles. As such, as long as one was from a noble family, he would be able to enter. However, Wang Chong knew that when the royal court announced the recruitment criteria for the 3 great training camps in the future, many people would be shocked. In order to enter the 3 great training camps, one had to be at least origin energy tier 4. This point would cause many officials and nobles to object to it. However, the decision of that person in the royal court was already set, and it was impossible for anyone to change it. This was the rule in the future, and it would only get stricter and stricter. The first batch of students only had to be at origin energy tier 4, and later on, it would be raised to tier 5 and tier 6. If Wang Chong couldn't squeeze into the first batch of students, it would only get harder and harder in the future. With such thoughts in his mind, Wang Chong soon entered a state of tranquility. After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong finally opened his eyes. Looking at the setting sun hanging high in the sky, Wang Chong was taken aback. Based on the medicinal effects of the body tempering pill and his cultivation realm, Wang Chong estimated that he would only be able to absorb the final strand of medicinal energy after nightfall. However, for some reason, he managed to cultivate much earlier than Wang Chong expected. It seemed as though his body's ability to absorb the body tempering pill was exceptionally strong. In his previous life, Wang Chong became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, and he was invincible on the battlefield. It was impossible for him to miscalculate the time required for the body tempering pill. It was already abnormal for there to be even the slightest mistake, needless to say, for the timing to be off by such a large margin. Not only so, even a simple horse stance would cause one to feel fatigued. Yet, despite training for so long, he didn't feel the slightest bit of fatigue at all. What in the world is going on? Wang Chong stared at the sky with doubt in his eyes. Back then, when he was dealing with Yao Feng in the vast crane pavilion, Wang Chong had already felt it. Compared to his previous reincarnation, He seemed to have undergone many changes. His movements were much more nimble, and on the vast crane pavilion, he was able to dodge many of the attacks that he was unable to dodge. However, back then, this feeling wasn't very obvious. Thus, Wang Chong didn't think much of it. However, as time passed, Wang Chong realized that the changes were becoming more and more obvious. Body tempering pill can only increase one's strength, but it doesn't allow one to feel nimble. Furthermore, if the body tempering pill could be refined so easily, there wouldn't be a need for so many people to purchase medicinal herbs and absorb them. Where did I go wrong? Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil. His performance in martial arts in this life seemed to be completely different from the one in his previous life. No matter how Wang Chong thought about it, he couldn't find anything suspicious. If he had to point to something, it could only be his reincarnation. So, is it because of that meteor? Wang Chong thought. If not for that mysterious meteor, it would be impossible for him to reincarnate. If there was a problem, it must be related to that mysterious meteor. Furthermore, thinking about it carefully, Wang Chong could vaguely recall hearing a voice before his death, just that he couldn't remember it clearly. Could it be that the energy of that mysterious meteor modified my body? Wang Chong thought. However, after his reincarnation, Wang Chong examined his body carefully, but he couldn't find anything amiss. I'm afraid this matter will remain a mystery forever. Wang Chong sighed and soon he calmed himself down. Even though he had miscalculated, Wang Chong soon realized that there was an unexpected harvest in his body. Not bad. Origin Energy Tier 3 Pinnacle, just a step away from reaching Origin Energy Tier 4. If I cultivate for the next few days, I should be able to do so. Wang Chong nodded his head in delight. This harvest was much higher than what he had expected. Under normal circumstances, the body tempering pill could only raise one's cultivation from Origin Energy Tier 3 to Tier 3. 5. However, through a unique trick, Wang Chong managed to obtain a harvest that far exceeded his expectations. There are 9 tiers in Origin Energy Realm. The first 3 tiers, Stance, Blood Energy Meridians, and Blood Energy Imbuement, are all considered foundation building. Only upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 4 can one be considered to have stepped into it. By then, one's body would be able to sense the flow of energy, and through nurturing and strengthening, one's strength would grow stronger and stronger. This is what it means to be a true Origin Energy cultivator. Wang Chong thought. The most anticipated realm in martial arts was Origin Energy Tier 4. At that point, one would be able to condense their own origin energy within one's body. With this origin energy, one's cultivation in the future would be much easier, and the growth of one's strength would be much faster. For the next few days, no one disturbed Wang Chong, and he spent his days cultivating in the backyard. In his previous life, Wang Chong was a slacker. In this life, Wang Chong was extremely focused and serious. Boom. 3 days later, just as Wang Chong was cultivating the dragon bone art, boom. Suddenly, his body jolted. As though a raging wave crashing against the shore, a formless barrier in Wang Chong's body shattered, and a light and relaxed feeling gushed into his heart. Wang Chong could clearly feel the strength in his body growing significantly. Success. An epiphany arose in Wang Chong's heart. His limbs, bones, and blood began to fuse together. Specks of fluorescent energy began to emerge from the millions of cells in his body, and a weak flow of energy suddenly appeared in Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong gathered this weak flow of energy together, and soon, it formed a crouching silkworm origin energy in his dantian. What a long-awaited feeling! Feeling the silkworm-like origin energy in his body, Wang Chong clenched his fists tightly in agitation. This wasn't the first time Wang Chong had reached Origin Energy Tier 4. Compared to the destructive strength he possessed in his previous life, the strength of Origin Energy Tier 4 wasn't even worth mentioning. However, to Wang Chong, the feeling this time was different. To reach Origin Energy Tier 4 at the age of 15, he had finally achieved something that he was unable to do in his previous life. At the prime age of 15, he had forged a firm foundation. Even though he wasn't sure if he would be able to break through the bottleneck of his previous life, at the very least, he had made it possible. Just as he was immersed in joy, a sudden change occurred. Wang Chang's heart tightened. He suddenly felt a formless danger and hostility in the air. Who is it? Wang Chang's face darkened, and he bellowed. Boom! In response to Wang Chang's words was a vicious punch. This punch was earth-shattering, and it caused the air in the backyard to explode. Following which an overwhelming fist flew toward Wang Chong. Brother, receive my punch. As the fist flew forward, a tender voice sounded in the air. Hearing this voice, Wang Chong's face paled in shock. Little sister. Wang Chong didn't expect that his little sister would be the one attacking him from behind. Wasn't this lass grounded by his mother? Why did she come to the backyard? But before he could think about it, a tiny fist had already appeared in the air and was heading toward his face. Wang Chong knew his little sister too well. Chapter 34. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong didn't have much time to think. Stepping on the ground with his left leg, he executed the Stellar Wind Cloak and executed Dragon Submerging Abyss together with the newly learned Dragon Bone art. In the past, Wang Chong wouldn't have been able to execute such an action. However, after reaching Origin Energy Tier 4, Wang Chong's senses and reaction speed had improved significantly. A gust of wind brushed past him by a hair's breadth. In fact, Wang Chong could even feel the skin on his face being blown up and scrunched up. The wind from the punch felt as though a blade had brushed past him, causing a stinging pain on his face. Little sister, what are you doing? Wang Chong was flustered and exasperated. He wasn't Yao Feng or those battle-hardened guards of the Yao clan. If he were to be struck by that punch, he would be bedridden for at least half a month. However, Wang Chong's words were meaningless. That shouldn't be. Given your strength, you shouldn't have been able to dodge my punch. Several zhang away, the Wang family's little sister tilted her head and supported her waist with her hands. She maintained the posture of punching out as she muttered to herself. She didn't seem to hear Wang Chong's words at all. Brother, how did your reaction speed up so much? The Wang family's little sister suddenly lifted her head and asked Wang Chong. She knew Wang Chong's cultivation. In that instant, Wang Chong's reaction speed was clearly much faster than before. This lass, Wang Chong found it both funny and infuriating. He couldn't vent his anger at all. Do you think that you're the only one who can improve? The King of Song gave me a body-tempering pill, so of course my strength will grow as well. Oh, is that so? Boring. The Wang family's little sister flung her hands. Soon, she lost her curiosity toward Wang Chong. You little girl, weren't you grounded by my mother? Why did you come to my place? Wang Chong said impatiently. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 4, not only would one's strength increase, one's mental state and reaction speed would also improve. 3 days have passed. Why am I still in detention? Wang Xiaoyao glared at her brother in displeasure, pursed her lips, and left. Also, youngster Wei, Fatty Wei came to our house. If he didn't say he had something to talk to you about, I wouldn't have come here. What? Wei Hao is here. Wang Chong was overjoyed. Without another word, he turned around and left. There was good news from Wei Hao. Including the day at the Eight Gods Pavilion, Wei Hao had finally made use of his connections to gather the manpower required for Wang Chong's smelting of the Hyderabad ores. My father wouldn't easily allow me to enter the family business. I hid it from my father and picked them out with great difficulty. Even though these 12 blacksmiths aren't the best, they are more than capable of accomplishing your task. Wang Chong, take a look. What do you think? Not bad, right? In the western suburbs of the capital, Wei Hao brought Wang Chong and his sister to a hidden cavern mine. He pointed to 12 muscular, bare-chested men with a gleeful look on his face. Wang Chong took a glance. These 12 muscular men were as strong as steel towers. Furthermore, there were inch-thick calluses on their fingers. It was clear that they were blacksmithing experts. Without a doubt, Wei Hao had taken up the task that he had entrusted to him. Not bad, I can do it. Wang Chong nodded his head and said seriously. Hee, I knew it. We are brothers, so you can rest assured with me handling the matter. Gleeful, Wei Hao pointed at Wang Chong and bellowed, Hurry up and greet young Master Chong. Young Master Chong. The 12 bronze-skinned muscular men bowed at the same time. Their expressions were respectful and filled with awe. To be able to be addressed as brothers by their young master, this pair of brother and sister must have a powerful background as well. Wei Hao, I won't say too much. Thanks. Wang Chong patted Wei Hao's shoulders. He was overjoyed. Hyderabad was an important part of his plan. With the help of the 12 blacksmiths from the Wei residence, his plan was finally going to start. Wang Chong was filled with anticipation and nervousness at the same time. There was too much profit to be made from Wuxia steel weapons. No one knew better than Wang Chong how much profit it could bring him. Now that the Hyderabad had just appeared on the market, as long as he could lay down the foundation for it, wealth would come rolling in like a tidal wave. After which, Wei Hao entrusted all of the matters to Wang Chong. Wang Chong didn't stand on ceremony. He flung his sleeves and stepped forward. Walala, a few pieces of black Hyderabad rolled out from his sleeves and landed on the ground. From now on, you will be split into 4 groups. I only have one request, and that is to keep the fire in the furnace burning for 24 hours a day. Now let's start. Wang Chong said loudly. Even though he looked young and was only 15 years old, Wang Chong's prestige still lingered in his previous life when he led the armies of the world. His words carried an awe-inspiring authority. Yes, young Master Chong. The crowd responded loudly. Hong Long, with a pull of the iron chain, the sluice gate opened, and a bright red stream of fire rumbled along the channel, immediately pouring down in torrents from above. Immediately after, the entire cave was filled with thick smoke. The 12 blacksmiths each pulled, and the Wei residence's iron mine in this area was immediately like a precise machine that had been activated, rumbling as it operated. Wang Chong might be knowledgeable, but this was the first time he had seen an iron mine smelting in this life. It was a unique experience for him. How high is the temperature of the fire in this channel? Looking at the crimson stream of fire pouring down from the gate, Wang Chong suddenly walked over and asked, 2,300 degrees. By the side of the channel, a 40-year-old blacksmith with tanned skin replied proudly. The stream of fire that poured down from the sluice was the underground magma that the Wei clan had hired a feng shui master to explore and receive from the cracks in the ground. The temperature of the lava flowing down from the gate was much higher than other smelting methods. In the entire capital, there weren't more than 5 underground lava flows like the Wei clans. If not for his young master's request, under normal circumstances, this place would never be opened to outsiders. The temperature is too high. It has already dropped to 1,500 degrees. Unexpectedly, Wang Chong frowned and waved his hands, issuing an order without any hesitation. The blacksmith was stunned for a moment. Unable to process the situation, he hurriedly argued, "But young Master Chong, this lava flow is extremely rare. Countless prestigious clans yearn for it but are unable to obtain it. Furthermore, the higher the temperature of the smelting, the better the effect. Just do as I say," Wang Chong said with an unquestionable tone. The blacksmith was dumbfounded. Usually, the forging of swords and sabers was carried out at high temperatures. The higher the temperature, the better the effect. At the same time, the impurities in the sword would also be purified. These were the most basic principles in the forging of swords and sabers. This child known as young Master Chong was clearly ignorant of such things. Others would be overjoyed to encounter such lava, but this person complained that the temperature was too high. He was at a loss for words. "Stop dawdling, do as young Master Chong says," Wei Hao said. He might not know much about smelting, but he knew that Wang Chong wouldn't speak without thinking. He must have his reasons for doing so. Sigh. Hearing those words, the middle-aged blacksmith could only sigh inside. He knew that these ores were probably going to be wasted. Even if they were to be forged, the effects wouldn't be too good. However, these ores weren't his, so he didn't have to worry about it. Just that he couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. Release the sand. The leader of the blacksmiths turned around and said to another blacksmith. Boom. At the top of the cavern, metal chains slid. In the next instant, a few massive metal pans tilted and a large amount of fine sand was poured into the channel. Water couldn't be used to cool down the lava, only sand could be used. This was a technique created by the blacksmiths of the Central Plains, and it was superior to the smithing techniques of the western regions. As the sand was poured into the channel, thick smoke rose into the air. Seeing that the lava flow had decreased significantly, Wang Chong nodded his head in satisfaction. Wang Chong didn't know anything about smelting, but Wang Chong knew about the Hyderabad ores. This type of ore was different from other ores. For other ores, the higher the temperature, the better. However, the temperature of Hyderabad ores couldn't exceed 1,500 degrees. Too high a temperature would result in the loss of carbon in the Wuxia steel and the destruction of the crystalline steel within. If the Wuxia steel were to reach such a temperature, it would be no different from ordinary pig iron. In his previous life, many people didn't understand this secret. Coupled with the fact that the Abbasid Caliphate intentionally kept it a secret, many countries and regions ended up with a large number of defective products when forging Wuxia steel. As a result, the quality of the Wuxia steel produced plummeted, and it was a waste of such a precious material. As such, other than the Abbasid Caliphate and Karak Spazu, there wasn't a single place that could forge a genuine Wuxia steel weapon. Now that the Hyderabad ores had just been released, Wang Chong was certain that more than half of the Hyderabad ores that were sold would go to waste. As long as he kept this secret, he would be able to maintain a huge advantage for a long period of time. At the very least, within a few years, he would be able to gain an advantage over the Abbasid Caliphate. Furthermore, the Abbasid Caliphate happened to be his greatest competitor for the Hyderabad ores in Sindh. From the Hyderabad ores to the Wuxia steel weapon, there were still many secrets to be kept. Obtaining the ores didn't mean that one would be able to obtain the Wuxia steel weapon. Unless absolutely necessary, Wang Chong wouldn't reveal a single one of these secrets. Hong Long Long. As the temperature of the lava in the channel dropped to 1,500 degrees, the smelting of the Hyderabad ores officially began. These ores that came from the faraway Sindh were placed into a furnace that was several zhang tall. Then, the lava in the channel started to pour down, and a loud rumbling sound echoed in the cavern. Wang Chong didn't know that while he was secretly smelting the Hyderabad ores, on the other side, Yao Guangyi had finally begun the final step of his plan. This will determine whether I can drive a wedge between the Song and Wang clan. Yao Guangyi's eyes lit up. Sitting on the back of his horse, his eyes shone with ambition. There was no righteous war in the spring and autumn, and there was no mercy in the royal court. Even though his grand plan had been foiled by the Wang clan siblings in the vast crane pavilion, Yao Guangyi still had another plan in mind. As long as the plan at the borders were carried out according to his plans, the Song and Wang clan would definitely fall out with each other. As long as the king of Song fell, King Qi would be able to reign supreme in the royal court. With the backing of King Qi, the Yao clan would be able to soar. Even if the old master was no longer around, the Yao clan would still be able to continue living a prosperous life. This was the reason why the old master, as well as the reason why he had painstakingly arranged this plan to deal with the Wang clan. Jaya. Chapter 35. Time passed day by day. With each passing day, the smelting of the Hyderabad ores would progress. Wang Chong did not know much about smelting, but Wang Chong trusted the blacksmiths that Wei Hao had found for him. With their abilities, it would not be a problem for them to fulfill his requests. 5 days later. It's done. The iron ingots are almost ready. Inside the cave, the leader of the blacksmiths, who was sweating profusely, suddenly shouted. His words attracted the attention of everyone in the cave. Wang. 4 burly blacksmiths extended their pincers into the blast furnace at the same time and took out 4 pieces of Hyderabad ores, or rather, Wuxia steel, and placed them on the metal platform. Unbelievable! So heavy. Such a large iron ingot can be produced from a piece of raw ore. The iron content of this ore must be unbelievable. Look at the flame, it's glowing blue. I've been smelting ores for decades and handled so many ores, but this is the first time I've seen such an ore. Look, it's still rough, but it already has the luster of steel. It's almost the same as well-tempered steel. What a miracle! A group of people surrounded the 4 Wuxia steel ingots on the metal platform. Their eyes were wide open as they clicked their tongues in wonder. When Wang Chong took out the 4 pieces of black iron ores, he did not tell them in detail. However, the blacksmiths had smelted so many ores that they could tell that the ores that Wang Chong wanted them to smelt were not from Middle-earth. Middle-earth would definitely not have iron ores that could emit blue flames from within, nor would they possess the characteristics of steel when they were just born. They had never seen such an ore in their decades of smelting. No wonder he asked me to lower the temperature to 1,500 degrees. The middle-aged craftsman in his 40s also reacted at this moment. That's great. It's indeed Wuxia steel. Wang Chong was also extremely excited. Although he had seen Wuxia steel weapons in his previous life, he had never seen the rough metal produced by Wuxia steel during the smelting process. This was the first time that Wuxia steel from a foreign country had shown its true colors in Middle-earth. This was a huge improvement. Now, it's time for the forging process. Wang Chong clenched his fist, his eyes bright. Now that the first step of smelting was complete, the next step was to create the finished weapon from the rough embryo. This step was even more important than smelting. It required more care and caution, and no mistakes could be made. Remove the fire. Use pine branches to light the fire and use the bellows to blow air. The temperature should not exceed 300 degrees. Wang Chong ordered. Those words immediately attracted everyone's attention. The 12 blacksmiths turned to look at Zhang Xian with peculiar gazes. Wang Chong's request was completely inconceivable to everyone. Young Master Chong. Isn't this temperature a little too low? Yeah. In the entire Tang dynasty, no one had ever forged at such a low temperature. This way, the forging results will be very poor. I'm afraid that even 7 days and 7 nights won't be enough to forge a weapon. The craftsmen gathered their courage and asked. It was one thing for the earth fire lava to drop from more than 2,000 degrees Celsius to 1,500 degrees Celsius. No matter what, 1,500 degrees Celsius was still a high temperature. However, Wang Chong actually requested for a forging temperature of 300 degrees Celsius. Such a low temperature was unheard of. It sounded like a request from an ignorant layman. Even though Wang Chong's position was higher than theirs, they couldn't help but have some objections. This wasn't how forging was done. This is called cold forging. Just do as I say. Wang Chong said calmly. He stared at the 12 blacksmiths without the slightest bit of hesitation. Cold forging was a unique method of forging weapons. It could greatly strengthen the metal and increase the hardness of the weapon. However, in this time-space, cold forging was still far from the reality. Most weapons were still forged at high temperatures. This was because high temperatures soften the metal, making it easier to mold it. Furthermore, it could greatly shorten the forging time. However, many people didn't know that despite the long forging time, the strengthening effect of cold forging was far superior to that of high-temperature forging. If Wang Chong wanted to forge top-notch Wuxia steel weapons, he would have to do it through cold forging. Of course, cold forging didn't refer to the cold temperature. Rather, it was relative to the high temperature of mainstream forging. The optimal temperature for cold forging of Wuxia steel was around 300 degrees Celsius. If one didn't understand this point, the effects of forging the same Wuxia steel weapons would be worlds apart. Even though the Abbasid Caliphate was in a favorable position, it would still take them at least 5 to 6 years to forge a Wuxia steel weapon of the same quality as Wang Chong's. Cold forging. The group of blacksmiths was baffled. They couldn't understand what Wang Chong was talking about. Enough. Why are you thinking so much? Just do as I say. Wei Hao wasn't that patient. He pointed at their noses and scolded them. What nonsense, just do as I say. It's not like you are the ones forging the weapon. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Wang Chong snickered. He knew that Wei Hao didn't have any dissatisfaction. It was just his personality. However, after being scolded by Wei Hao, the blacksmiths became obedient and prepared to start work. Form groups of 3. Work at the same time. Since 7 days isn't enough, We'll use 10 days. This is the blueprint for the first weapon. Let's begin. Wang Chong unfurled a blueprint and loudly announced to the crowd. Even though Wang Chong didn't know how to forge weapons, these were the best blacksmiths around. How could Wei Hao possibly be weak when he had been handpicked? Furthermore, these blacksmiths would ask a bunch of questions during the forging process. If they weren't top-notch blacksmiths, how could they possibly ask so many questions? The more skilled a blacksmith was, the more prideful they would be, and the more they wouldn't be willing to let their subordinates forge ordinary weapons. The fact that these blacksmiths liked to be picky was a testament to their skills. Ding ding dang dang. In the next period of time, the cavern bustled with activity. Other than Wang Chong, no one knew that this was the first time the cold forging method had appeared in this world. Little sister, when the first batch of weapons is completed, I'll have to trouble you to help me with something. At this moment, Wang Chong suddenly turned around and said, "What is it?" The Wang family's little sister yawned in boredom. When she heard about Sindhi and Hyderabad, she thought that it would be something fun. In the end, it was just forging. How boring! Help me forge this batch of weapons once more. 3,000 times for each weapon. Wang Chong said, "Shua." Wei Hao raised his thumbs up in admiration. "Wang Chong, you are way too incredible. To think that you would think of using an expert like Xiao Yao to forge for you. With her strength, the quality of this batch of weapons would be raised to a whole new level." However, it was too wishful thinking on their part. "I don't want to." The Wang family's little sister rolled her eyes. Without any hesitation, she rejected Wei Hao directly. To think that he would treat her as free labor. Did he really think that she was a 3-year-old child? That was too wishful thinking. 100 gold taels. I won't be doing it for free. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong raised a finger. "Ah." The Wang family's little sister's eyes lit up and she widened her eyes. She seemed to be moved by the conditions that her brother offered. 100 gold taels. She might be young, but she was still able to differentiate between gold and silver. Her monthly allowance was only 10 silver taels, and yet, Wang Chong said that he would give her 100 gold taels. If she could get that much, wouldn't she be rich? Just the thought of it made her excited. "I won't do it." The Wang family's little sister pouted. She suddenly turned her head to the side and rejected the offer without any hesitation. Wang Chong and Wei Hao were shocked. Just when they thought that they had miscalculated and that the Wang family's little sister was unwilling to accept the offer, they suddenly heard another sentence. 200 gold taels. Not a single tael less. Otherwise, I will tell my mother. Let my mother teach you a lesson. Upon hearing the last sentence, a bizarre expression appeared on the faces of Wang Chong and Wei Hao. This was especially so for Wei Hao. He couldn't help but burst into laughter and his eyes were about to burst. I'm dying of laughter. Wang Chong, to think that you would have such a day. Xiao Yao, you don't have to stand on ceremony with him. Your brother is a rich man now. If you don't make him bleed a little, let your mother teach him a lesson." Wei Hao looked at the serious expression on the Wang family's little sister and his stomach was about to fall to the ground from laughter. Wang Chong shook his head as well. He felt an indescribable awkwardness in his heart. This time, he had let an outsider like Wei Hao see a joke. This little sister of his was indeed a little money grubber. Deal. He had a lot of money on him now. Using Wei Hao's words, he was a tycoon now. 200 gold taels was nothing to him. Yay! The Wang family's little sister clenched her fists tightly and her face flushed red. She was just testing the waters, but she didn't expect to succeed. However, soon, the Wang family's little sister seemed to have thought of something and calmed down. She stared at Wang Chong doubtfully. 200 gold taels? That's gold, not silver. Third brother, you mustn't lie to me. Wang Chong chuckled. This lass asked for 200 gold taels from him, but he didn't believe her and started to doubt her. Wealth came too easily. Of course. When have I ever lied to you? Here are 200 silver taels. If you don't believe me, I can pass it to you first. Wang Chong took out a gold tael and passed it over. Even though 200 gold taels wasn't a small sum, Wang Chong was still satisfied to be able to invite his little sister, the Hercules, of Origin Energy Tier 9. In his previous life, the reason why Wuxi steel weapons could be sold for tens of thousands wasn't just because of the rarity of Wuxi steel. More importantly, it was because of the highest level of craftsmanship that this weapon represented. Every single wood steel weapon had been crafted with a great deal of effort and care. Thus, even though Sindhu was the source of the Hyderabad ores, Abbasid Caliphate and Damascus were the core of the Wuxi steel industry. The appearance of the Hyderabad ores was just the beginning. Wang Chong didn't have any competitors yet. What Wang Chong wanted wasn't to sell Hyderabad ores but to establish his own brand. Those who were willing to fork out tens of thousands or even hundreds of gold taels to purchase a Wuxi steel weapon weren't fools. If the quality of the Wuxi steel weapon didn't exceed that of other weapons of the same grade, no one would spend so much money to purchase it. Cold forging was a crucial step in the forging process. The blacksmith had to exert his full strength, and the greater the strength, the better. In this aspect, with the help of his little sister, an expert close to Origin Energy Tier 9, Wang Chong was confident that the Wuxi steel weapon he forged would be of the highest quality and workmanship. Deal. You're not allowed to regret your decision. Upon seeing the 200 gold taels, the Wang family's little sister's eyes widened. She took it from Wang Chong's hands with a nervous expression, fearing that Wang Chong would regret his decision. But brother, where did you get so much money from? The Wang family's little sister finally realized that something was amiss. That fatty youngster Wei only said that this brother had earned quite a sum of money, but he didn't say where he got the money from. Add another 10 taels, don't tell mother about it. Wang Chong stuffed a gold ingot into her hands. Deal. The Wang family's little sister beamed with joy upon receiving the gold ingot. She couldn't be bothered about where Wang Chong got so much money from. Sweat, she sure is a little money grubber. Wei Hao felt cold sweat trickling down his back. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.